the government's clearly not happy with this decision and what it means for its powers to deport non-citizens. But it's also seeking advice, we heard from Christian Porter and Peter Dutton, about wider implications. Now, potential wider implications could include some of the government's counter-terrorism laws, specifically its power to strip citizenship from dual nationals and its temporary exclusion orders. This is the view of Professor Kim Rubenstein. She's a leading expert on citizenship law and the Constitution. She's now the co-director of the 50/50 by 2030 Foundation at the University of Canberra. She believes there is a potential problem here for the government on those counter-terror laws, including, as I say, the power to strip citizenship from dual nationals. And I spoke to her a little earlier about this.
The whole case really was about who is an alien for the purposes of the Constitution. And up until the case last week, the assumption had been that if someone was a dual citizen, it meant that they were also an alien because they were a citizen of a foreign power. And the court up until then had said that was the essence of being an alien, a citizen of a foreign power. And that is how they had then managed to introduce legislation to strip dual citizens and not single citizens of their citizenship. So I think this case and some of the judgments raise a really interesting question about whether the alien's head of power, which is what is used to strip dual citizens of their citizenship, now is sufficient for that actually to occur.
OK, so you're saying there is some doubt as to whether this law is constitutional?
That's right. Well, I would say, David, that there has always been a doubt as to whether this law is constitutional, and we haven't had any challenge up until this point from someone who has been stripped of their citizenship. So it's a live question and has been a live question, and perhaps this case will give even more strength to the argument that it is unconstitutional.
And what about another law here, the government's temporary exclusion orders for those it suspects of terrorist-related activity? What are the implications for that law?
So this is the other law that has been raised in discussion as to whether it is now challenged by this decision, because the judges also recognise in this decision the rights of citizens to residence and identify it as one of those aspects of the rights that flow from citizenship or membership. And so, if that is the case, then how can someone who has a right of residence be prevented from returning? And that, again, that was one of the issues that have been raised in the various parliamentary committees by constitutional lawyers as to a question mark as to the constitutional validity of that particular act. So I think both of those pieces of legislation, which have been raised and discussed ever since they've been introduced as being potentially unconstitutional, now have a further aspect to from this judgment to challenge and to keep that as a very live issue.
That's Professor Kim Rubenstein talking to us a little earlier.